Henry Callahan checked his watch for the 5th time. The ice in his old-fashioned had melted, watering down the whiskey he'd barely touched. Through the glass walls of the rooftop restaurant, the Austin skyline sparkled against the evening sky, a view that had cost him 3 months of savings. "She'll be here," he muttered to himself, adjusting the sleeves of his navy blazer, the only one he owned. Purchased specifically for tonight. His phone buzzed. A text from Amelia. Running late. Traffic, in apology. No explanation beyond those 3 words. Henry sighed and ordered another drink, this one neat. The reservation had been for 7. It was now 8:15. When Amelia finally arrived, Henry almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the woman who used to help him sand tables on weekends, replaced by someone with professionally highlighted hair, a black dress that probably cost more than the oak he'd been saving for a special commission, and makeup that transformed her face into something magazine perfect and distant. "Sorry," she said, without meeting his eyes. She didn't sound sorry. Henry stood, pulling out her chair. "You look beautiful," he said, meaning it despite everything. "Thanks." She dropped her designer purse on the table and immediately pulled out her phone. "I need a drink. What's good here?" The sommelier recommended a Cabernet that pairs well with a prime rib. I took the liberty of ordering it for us. Amelia finally looked up, her face showing the first hint of genuine emotion, irritation. "I'm not eating red meat anymore, Henry. I told you that last week." Had she? Henry couldn't remember. Lately, it felt like Amelia changed her preferences as often as she changed her outfits. "They have excellent fish," he offered. "Or I can see if they'll customize something vegetarian." She waved her hand dismissively. "Whatever. I'm not that hungry anyway." Her phone buzzed. She immediately reached for it, her face brightening at whatever message she'd received. Henry tried 3 times to start a conversation as their appetizers arrived. He talked about the custom dining table he was crafting for a local doctor, the new techniques he was experimenting with, how business was picking up thanks to word of mouth. Amelia nodded at appropriate intervals, but her eyes remained fixed on her phone. She'd take a small bite of food, then return to texting, her fingers moving rapidly across the screen. 5 years, Henry said, raising his glass after their entree arrived. "Happy anniversary, Amelia." She looked up, startled, as if she'd forgotten why they were there. "Right," she said, clinking her glass against his half-heartedly. 5 years. Her phone buzzed again. This time, Henry caught a glimpse of the message preview. "Tori, you're slumming it, babe. You could do so much better." The words hit him like a physical punch. He set his glass down slowly, appetite gone. "Who's that?" he asked, his voice too calm. "Just Tori," Amelia replied without looking up. "Girl stuff. Nothing interesting. Must be important if it can't wait until after our anniversary dinner." Amelia's eyes flashed. "Don't start, Henry. I'm here, aren't I?" "Are you?" The question hummed between them. Amelia's phone buzzed again, and the moment shattered as she instinctively reached for it. Henry watched her face soften at whatever message had come through. She was smiling at her phone in a way she hadn't smiled at him in months. "Remember when we used to talk?" he asked quietly. "Actually talk, not just exist in the same space." "We're talking now," she said, still typing. "No, we're not." Henry signaled for the check. The dessert he'd specially arranged, a recreation of their wedding cake flavors, would remain in the kitchen, uneaten. The smell of fresh-cut oak filled Henry's workshop the next morning. He worked the hand plane in smooth, practiced motions, focusing on the grain of the wood rather than the hollow feeling in his chest. The physical exertion helped quiet his mind, at least temporarily. When the door opened behind him, Henry knew who it was without turning around. Amelia's perfume, something new and expensive she'd started wearing recently, announced her presence. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, continuing to work the plane. "You haven't visited the shop in months. I need to talk to you." Something in her tone made him stop. He turned around and saw the suitcase by her feet. small, but packed full. "Going somewhere?" he asked. Amelia stood with perfect posture, her face a mask of determination. She wore another expensive outfit, one he'd never seen before, and her hair was freshly styled. "I'm leaving, Henry." The words should have shocked him. They didn't. "Any particular reason?" His voice remained steady. "This isn't working anymore. It hasn't been for a while." She gestured vaguely at the workshop. At him, at the sawdust on his clothes. "You're good, Henry. Just not my league. I'm done settling." Henry set the plane down carefully on his workbench. He wiped his hands on a rag, buying time to process. Not that he needed it. Deep down, he'd been expecting this moment for months, watching her grow more distant, more dissatisfied. "Settling," he repeated, "is that what the last 5 years have been to you? Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "I'm not making it anything. You're the one with the suitcase." Amelia sighed, as if he were being difficult on purpose. "I already found a place. I'll send for the rest of my things later." "Already found a place," Henry echoed. "Not looking for a place. Already found." This had been planned. "It's better this way," she said. "Clean break." "For who?" "For both of us." She checked her watch. Another new acquisition. "I have to go." Henry nodded, turning back to his work. "You'll regret this." He said it quietly, without malice, a simple statement of fact. Amelia laughed, a short, brittle sound. "The only thing I regret is wasting 5 years waiting for you to become something more." She picked up her suitcase. "Goodbye, Henry." The door closed behind her with a soft click. Henry stood motionless for several minutes, staring at the grain of the oak beneath his hands. Then methodically he continued working the plane, each stroke precise and controlled. His face betrayed nothing of the storm inside him. "She did what?" Grady's voice cut through the evening quiet of Henry's backyard. He took a pull from his beer bottle, shaking his head in disbelief. 3 days had passed since Amelia left. Henry sat in one of the Adirondack chairs he'd built last summer, nursing his own beer. He called Grady not for sympathy, but because the empty house was starting to echo in a way he couldn't stand. "Said I wasn't in her league," Henry replied, his voice matter-of-fact. "Called our marriage settling." "That's cold, man. Ice cold." Grady leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You know what makes it worse?" "What?" "She's already seeing someone else." "Hayes Granger." Henry's hand tightened imperceptibly around his bottle. "The gym guy, yeah. Owns the chain of fitness centers. Total jerk, but loaded." "How do you know?" "They were at East Side Tavern last night. Not exactly being discreet." Grady hesitated. "I didn't want to tell you, but figured you should hear it from a friend before you see it on social media." Henry nodded, his expression unchanged, but something inside him, something that had been quietly smoldering since the restaurant, ignited into a steady, controlled burn. "You don't seem surprised," Grady observed. "I'm not." The back door opened and Celia, Grady's sister, stepped out carrying a plate of food. "Made you something to eat," she said, setting it on the table next to Henry. "Since I'm guessing you haven't bothered." "Thanks," Henry said, realizing he couldn't remember his last real meal. "You didn't have to. Someone's out to make sure you don't waste away in self-pity." Celia's tone was direct, but her eyes were kind. She'd known Henry as long as a brother, almost 15 years now. "Who's pitying anything?" Henry asked. "I'm fine." "Amelia left him for Hayes Granger," Grady explained. Celia's expression darkened. "That shallow, spray-tanned idiot. The one who calls himself a fitness entrepreneur, but just inherited Daddy's money." "That's the one," Grady confirmed. Celia sat in the third chair, uninvited, but clearly not leaving. "Listen to me, Henry," she said, leaning forward. "Don't let this crush you. You have too much fire for her to douse it." Henry looked at her, really looked for the first time that evening. Celia had always been a constant in his life, reliable and straightforward. Her brown hair was pulled back in its usual practical ponytail, her face free of makeup, her clothes simple and functional. Nothing like Amelia's carefully cultivated image. "I'm not crushed," he said. "I'm awake." "What does that mean?" Grady asked. Henry took a drink of his beer. "It means I see things clearly now. All of it. The last year of excuses and distance. The new friends, the sudden interest in status." He shook his head. "She wanted a different life. One I wasn't part of." "So what are you going to do?" Celia asked. Henry looked out across his modest backyard to the workshop, where he poured his heart and skill into creating beautiful things with his hands, where he built a business from nothing but talent and persistence. "I'm going to build something so massive she drowns in her regret." "That's not healthy, man," Grady started. "Not for revenge," Henry clarified. "For me. She thought I wasn't good enough. Fine. I'll become better than she could ever imagine." Celia studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Now that," she said, "is a plan I can get behind." 6 months passed. Austin's summer heat had given way to fall, and Henry's workshop had transformed almost as much as the man himself. The space was twice its original size, with new equipment, better lighting, and a small but professional office area where he met with clients. On one wall hung a framed article from the local business journal featuring a custom conference table Henry had built for the Tektron industry CEO. The piece had gone viral in design circles, bringing a flood of commissions from other executives wanting similar statement pieces. Henry reviewed the designs on his tablet, making notes for his 2 new apprentices who would arrive later that morning. His phone buzzed with a notification from a scheduling app. Another interview request, this time from a regional lifestyle magazine. He confirmed the appointment. The radio playing in the background switched to a local podcast segment. He barely registered it until he heard a familiar name. "So, Tori, you know him personally, right?" the host was asking. "Henry Callahan, the woodworker everyone's talking about." Henry's hand froze over the tablet. "I wouldn't say I know him personally," came Tori's voice, dripping with condescension. "My friend was married to him before she upgraded." The host laughed. "Ouch, tell us how you really feel." "I'm just saying, he's a small-town wood guy with big dreams. Good for him that he made a fancy table, but let's not pretend he's the next big thing." Henry stood, walking deliberately to the radio. Instead of turning it off, he turned it up. "What does your friend think about his sudden success?" the host asked. "Please," Tori scoffed. "She's moved on to bigger things. When you've had filet mignon, you don't go back to hamburger, you know what I'm saying." The host laughed uncomfortably. "I think that's all the time we have for today's segment. Thanks for." Henry switched off the radio, his jaw tight, but his eyes clear. He walked to the center of his workshop, looking around at what he'd built, what he was still building. Then he picked up his phone and opened the camera app. "Watch me build an empire with these hands," he said to the empty room. That afternoon, he posted his first video on social media, a simple time-lapse of his hands transforming raw wood into something beautiful, captioned only with "Crafting Legacy, Not Status." #PhoenixGrain. By evening, it had 10,000 views. "Your content is good, but your branding needs focus," Dinder said, swiping through the portfolio on his tablet. "You're telling a story here, but it's not sharp enough yet." The meeting had been Celia's idea, 3 weeks after Henry's social media presence began gaining traction. She'd insisted he meet with Dinder Washington, a branding expert whose client list included several Austin success stories. They sat in the new conference room, adjoining Henry's workshop, a space that still smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Dinder, with his immaculate suit and precise way of speaking, seemed out of place among the tools and wood samples. But his eyes lit up with genuine appreciation when examining Henry's work. "What kind of story are you thinking?" Henry asked. "The most powerful one. Truth." Dinder set down his tablet. "Man builds beautiful things with his hands. Man's wife leaves him because she thinks he's beneath her. Man rises above it all. letting his craft speak for itself. He spread his hands. Authenticity sells, especially when paired with exceptional talent. Henry frowned. I don't want to use my failed marriage as a marketing tool. You don't have to say a word about it, said the third person at the table. The story will tell itself. Lena Vasquez had arrived 15 minutes after Dinder, apologizing for her lateness with the casual confidence of someone used to running on her own schedule. As one of Austin's most sought-after divorce attorneys, her time came at a premium. What does that mean? Henry asked. It means people love watching someone rise from adversity, Lena explained, especially when the one who caused the adversity is watching too. Henry looked between them. And how exactly do you know Amelia is watching? Celia, who had been quietly observing from the corner, spoke up. Because I mentioned your new project to a mutual friend, who mentioned it to her, and suddenly, she's following your business accounts from a private profile. You're tracking her social media. No, Celia corrected. I'm tracking your audience metrics. She's just part of it. Henry leaned back in his chair, processing this information. So what exactly are you all proposing? A cohesive brand strategy, Dinder said. Phoenix Grain isn't just a clever name, it's your story. Wood that's been through fire, becoming something more beautiful and valuable because of it. And legally, Lena added, I want to make sure everything's protected. Your business, your designs, your name. If this keeps growing the way it looks like it will, protection matters. And what do you get out of this? Henry asked them both. Dinder smiled. A percentage of growth revenue, as we discussed in my proposal, and the satisfaction of helping craft one of the best business stories in Austin. For me, Lena said, standard legal fees, and perhaps a discount on one of your pieces when I renovate my office next year. She gave a small smile. I've helped 6 women in our shared circle through their divorces from men who undervalued them. It would be refreshing to help a man who was undervalued for a change. Henry looked at Celia, who hadn't taken her eyes off him. And you? What's your stake in all this? Something flickered across her face, too quickly to identify. Friends help friends, Henry. That's my stake. He nodded slowly, then turned back to Dinder and Lena. All right, let's build something meaningful. Amelia stared at her phone screen, scrolling through Henry's latest Instagram post. A behind-the-scenes look at the custom dining set he was creating for a famous director's Malibu home. 50,000 likes already, and comments filled with praise and commission requests. Are you still looking at that? Hayes asked from the doorway of their condo bedroom. It's just wood, babe. Amelia quickly closed the app. Just checking what's trending locally, she lied. Hayes didn't notice. He was too busy admiring his reflection in the full-length mirror, adjusting the collar of his designer polo. We're going to be late for Damien's party, he said. And you know how impossible parking gets at his place. I'm almost ready, Amelia said, though she was still in a robe, her makeup half done. Well, hurry up. He checked his watch, an ostentatious piece that never failed to make its way into his social media posts. I told everyone we'd be there by 9. When Hayes left the room, Amelia reopened Instagram, but this time to her direct messages. 3 new ones from former friends, all variations on the same theme. Haven't seen you around lately. Everything okay? None from Tori, who hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Not since Amelia had caught her leaving Hayes' office at an unusual hour, both of them looking guilty and disheveled. Her phone buzzed with a text from her boss at the event planning company, where she worked part-time. Need to talk Monday about your position. Call me. The 3rd such message in 2 months. Her heart sank. She knew what it meant. Another client had requested someone else to handle their event. Someone who wasn't associated with the increasingly public drama between her, Hayes, and apparently half of Austin's social scene. As if on cue, her phone lit up with a notification from Austin Social, the local gossip blog. Fitness mogul Hayes Granger spotted at La Condesa with mystery blonde, not for the first time. Attached was a photo, grainy but unmistakable, Hayes, and a woman Amelia recognized as the new yoga instructor at his flagship gym. "Amelia," Hayes called from the living room. "Seriously, we need to go." With shaking hands, she opened her social media app again, navigating to the composed screen. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Some men just don't know how to appreciate a good woman. Emotionally unavailable from the start, should have seen the red flags. She hesitated only briefly before adding a hashtag. #Henry Callan. The post went live just as Hayes walked back into the bedroom. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "We're already late." "I'm not going," Amelia said, her voice eerily calm. "In fact, I think you should leave." "What are you talking about?" She turned her phone screen toward him, showing the photo from Austin's social. "Care to explain this?" Hayes' face darkened. "You're checking up on me now. Going through gossip blogs. That's pathetic." "Amelia, is it true?" "So, what if it is? It's not like we're married." He sneered the last word. "You're free to leave any time if you're not happy with the arrangement." "Arrangement?" Amelia stood up, anger replacing shock. "Is that what this is to you? What did you think it was? True love?" Hayes laughed. "Come on, Amelia. We both know what this relationship is about. You wanted an upgrade from Mr. Sawdust, and I wanted arm candy who understands how the game is played." He checked his watch again. "Now, are you coming to this party or not?" "Get out," Amelia whispered. "Excuse me." "Get out," she shouted, grabbing the nearest object, an expensive crystal paperweight, and hurling it at the wall near his head. Hayes ducked, his face contorting with rage. "You've lost your mind. And you've lost me." She pointed to the door. "I want you gone by morning. I'll send for my things." After he stormed out, Amelia collapsed onto the edge of the bed, her social media posts still glowing accusingly on her phone screen. Comments were already flooding in, most of them negative. "Aren't you the one who left him? Trying to save face now that he's successful? Pretty sure you're the red flag, honey." She threw her phone across the room with a cry of frustration. How had everything fallen apart so completely? 6 months ago, she'd been so certain she was making the right choice, moving up, finding her real place in the world. Now her job was in jeopardy, her reputation tarnished, and the man she discarded was rising while she fell. Her phone buzzed again from where it had landed on the carpet. Against her better judgment, she retrieved it. A notification from Henry's business account. He'd posted a new video. With trembling fingers, she opened it. No words. No explanation. Just a simple 2-minute montage. Clips of their early days together. Her helping in his workshop. Laughing, covered in sawdust. The anniversary dinner. Her arriving late, distracted by her phone. The day she left. Then Henry alone. Building. Creating pieces. Getting more elaborate. Spaces growing larger. The final shot. Henry standing in his expanded workshop, calm and focused, with a simple caption. Some find their value in status, others in creation. #Phoenix Grain. The video had been posted less than 5 minutes ago. It already had thousands of views. Amelia slid down to the floor, her back against the bed, and finally allowed herself to cry. Henry sat on his front porch, drinking coffee and reviewing supply inventories on his tablet. The morning air was crisp with early spring freshness, and his dog Sundance, a rescue mutt he'd adopted 3 months ago, lounged contentedly at his feet. The past 9 months had transformed not just his business, but his life. Phoenix Grain had expanded into a proper studio with 5 full-time employees. His waiting list for commission stretched 8 months. The Home Improvement Channel had filmed a segment on his process, and most importantly, he found a quiet confidence that no longer needed external validation. The sound of tires on gravel made Sundance lift his head. Henry looked up to see an unfamiliar car pulling into his driveway, dust settling around it in the morning light. He didn't immediately recognize the woman who emerged. Her hair was shorter, less professionally styled. Her clothes were simple, jeans and a plain blouse. No designer sunglasses, No statement jewelry. Then she turned toward the porch, and he saw her face. Amelia. Sundance stood, sensing his tension, but didn't bark. Henry put a calming hand on the dog's head. "Henry," she said, stopping at the bottom of the porch steps. "I hope it's okay that I came by." He said nothing, just waited. There was no anger in him. Not anymore. Just a strange, detached curiosity. "You look good," she offered. "Really good. What do you want, Amelia?" She fidgeted with her car keys, suddenly uncertain. Nothing like the confident woman who had walked out of his workshop with a suitcase and no regrets. "I've been thinking a lot." Her voice was different too. Softer, less practiced. "About us, about the choices I made." "That right?" She nodded, taking a tentative step forward. "They were wrong, Henry. I was wrong." Her eyes filled with tears. "Everyone was wrong about you, about us." Henry took a sip of his coffee, his face impassive, encouraged by silence. Amelia climbed the first step. "I miss you," she said. "I miss us. What we had was real, and I threw it away for nothing." "Not nothing," Henry corrected quietly. "Status, appearances, things you decided were more important than what we built. I know, and I was so foolish. Another step up. But we could start over. I know things have changed, but the foundation is still there. You and me." Sundance whined softly, picking up on the emotional current between them. Henry scratched behind the dog's ears, his eyes never leaving Amelia's face. "You've changed," she continued, reaching the top step now. "I've changed too. We could build something new, something better." "Why now?" Henry asked. "Why not 6 months ago or 3 months ago?" Amelia blinked, caught off guard by the direct question. "I needed time to realize what I'd lost." Interesting timing, though. Right when Phoenix Grain gets featured in Design Quarterly. Right when my waitlist hits 8 months. Right when people who wouldn't give me the time of day are suddenly name-dropping me at parties. "That's not fair," she protested. "This isn't about your success, isn't it?" Henry stood up, Sundance rising with him. "Let me ask you something, Amelia. If I was still just a guy with a small workshop taking local commissions, would you be here right now?" She hesitated a fraction too long. "That's what I thought," Henry said. He moved to the door, Sundance following obediently. "I don't recycle regrets, Amelia. You chose the climb. Now enjoy the fall." "Henry, please," she said, desperation edging into her voice. "Just give me a chance to explain, to make it right." He paused, hand on the doorknob. For a moment, something like pity crossed his face. "There's nothing to explain. You showed me exactly who you are. The best favor you ever did for me was walking away." The door closed with a soft but final click, leaving Amelia alone on the porch. The sound of her quiet sobs was drowned out by the spring birds. The Austin Convention Center buzzed with the energy of the annual tech startup Expo. Entrepreneurs, investors, and media filled the vast space, navigating between booths and presentations, all chasing the next big thing. In the central exhibition area, a crowd had gathered around a display unlike any other at the tech-focused event. Instead of screens and gadgets, this booth showcased wood, but wood transformed into functional art. A conference table with embedded technology that seemed to grow organically from the grain. Lighting fixtures that cast patterns inspired by the wood's natural history. Chairs that balanced perfect ergonomics with stunning design. At the center of it all stood Henry, dressed simply but confidently in a quality button-down and dark jeans, explaining the philosophy behind Phoenix Grain to a group of captivated listeners. "Technology disconnects us from the natural world," he was saying. "My pieces aim to bridge that gap, embracing innovation while honoring the organic materials that make it possible." Deendra moved smoothly through the crowd, distributing sleek company portfolios to interested investors. He caught Henry's eye and gave a subtle nod. Another deal in progress. The Expo's keynote stage was visible from Henry's booth. A large screen displayed the schedule. 3:00 p.m. Featured presentation. Phoenix Grain. Crafting Legacy in a Disposable World. Henry Callahan. Henry checked his watch. Just over an hour until this talk. His phone buzzed with a notification. The live stream of the Expo had already exceeded projected viewership, with most comments specifically mentioning anticipation for his presentation. Mr. Callahan. A woman in a crisp blazer approached, hand extended. Melissa Chong, Venture Capital Partners. Do you have a moment to discuss potential expansion opportunities? Of course, Henry smiled. Though I should clarify, I'm not looking for traditional investment. Phoenix Grain grows at its own pace, on its own terms. That's precisely why we're interested, she replied. Authentic brands with clear vision are rare in today's market. We'd like to discuss a partnership that maintains your creative control while providing resources for strategic growth. As they talked, Henry noticed a commotion near the entrance to the exhibition hall. A familiar figure was trying to push past security. Hayes Granger, looking disheveled and angry. Dinder smoothly intercepted. Problem? He asked security. This gentleman doesn't have the proper credentials, the guard explained. Says he knows Mr. Callahan personally. I just want to talk to him, Hayes insisted. 5 minutes. Dinder glanced at Henry, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. I'm afraid Mr. Callahan's schedule is completely booked, Dinder said with professional courtesy. Perhaps you could reach out through proper channels to arrange a meeting at another time. As Hayes was escorted away, still protesting, Melissa raised an eyebrow. Friend of yours? Former acquaintance, Henry replied, turning his attention back to her proposal. Now, you were saying about maintaining creative control. An hour later, Henry stood backstage, reviewing his presentation notes. 3 major contracts signed, 2 potential partnerships with ethical design firms, and a waiting list that had grown another month just during the Expo. Ready? Celia appeared at his side, handing him a bottle of water. She'd been working behind the scenes all day, coordinating the booth staff, managing the logistics. Ready? Henry confirmed, taking a deep breath. Nervous? He considered the question. No, he realized. Not at all. Celia smiled. Good, because they're already standing room only out there. As Henry walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause, his presentation appeared on the massive screen behind him. A simple logo, a piece of wood with flame marks that formed the shape of a rising bird, and the words, Phoenix Grain, beauty born of fire. His phone, left backstage with Celia, lit up with a message from an unknown number. I'm in the audience. We need to talk. Celia turned the phone face down without replying. On stage, Henry began speaking, his voice confident and clear. The most valuable things in life aren't the ones that come easily. They're the ones forged through challenge, shaped by experience, and built to last beyond trends and temporary desires. The live stream counter ticked past 1 million viewers. So why furniture? Lacey Monroe asked, her recorder placed carefully on the coffee table between them. Of all the creative outlets, what drew you to woodworking specifically? Henry considered the question, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. They sat in his home office, a space that reflected his aesthetic, warm woods, clean lines, and an atmosphere of calm productivity. Lacey Monroe had made a name for herself with thoughtful profiles of Austin innovators, and her request to interview Henry for Austin Monthly had come with impressive credentials. Dinder had vetted her thoroughly before confirming the appointment. There's an honesty to wood, Henry finally said. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. Every nut, every grain pattern tells the story of its growth. You can try to hide those characteristics, but the best pieces embrace them, make them part of the beauty. Lacey nodded, making notes. Your brand grew exponentially after your divorce. Was that intentional? Using adversity as fuel. I didn't build Phoenix Grain because my marriage ended, Henry clarified. I built it because I finally understood what I was capable of when I stopped seeking external validation. And yet, Lacey pressed gently, The narrative of personal and professional reinvention has been central to your appeal. The phoenix rising from the ashes, so to speak. Henry smiled slightly. Life gives you material. What you build with it is your choice. Lacey switched tracks. I received an interesting email yesterday from your ex-wife. Henry's expression didn't change, but his posture shifted almost imperceptibly. Oh. She offered her perspective on your journey, suggested there were aspects of the story the public doesn't know. Lacey watched him carefully. She was quite insistent that I speak with her before publishing. And did you? I did. Lacey took a sip of her water. I also did a background check, spoke with mutual acquaintances, and reviewed the timeline of events. Standard journalistic practice. And I'm more interested in your perspective than in rehashing private matters for public consumption. She turned off her recorder. Off the record, your ex-wife's version of events doesn't align with the facts. I'm not in the business of enabling reputation rehabilitation. Henry nodded once, appreciative of her directness. Thank you. Don't thank me for doing my job. Lacey switched her recorder back on. Now tell me about the environmental initiatives Phoenix Grain is implementing. I understand you've developed a sustainable sourcing program. 2 weeks later, the article was published. Henry's phone rang continuously as colleagues and friends called to congratulate him on the profile, which painted an honest but flattering portrait of his journey and philosophy. One paragraph in particular generated the most buzz. Some people leave to level up. Others level up so no one leaves again. Callahan says when asked about resilience, it's a statement that could sound bitter coming from someone else, but from him, it rings with authenticity. Phoenix Grain isn't a company built on revenge or restoration of wounded pride. It's a testament to what happens when talent finally recognizes its own worth. The Heritage Woods Foundation's annual charity auction had transformed the Palmer Event Center into an elegantly understated showcase of Austin philanthropy. Soft lighting illuminated displays of donated items, from vacation packages to art pieces, all awaiting the evening's bidding. At the center of the main hall stood Henry's contribution, a dining table of unprecedented craftsmanship, inlaid with subtle patterns that told the story of Austin's growth from river to skyline. The piece had already generated pre-event buzz among collectors and design enthusiasts. Henry circulated through the crowd in a tailored suit that fit him perfectly, not just by measurement, but in the confidence with which he wore it. He no longer felt like an outsider in these spaces, no longer the tradesman invited as a curiosity. Now people sought him out, eager to discuss commissions, collaborations, or simply be seen talking with him. Your table's going to start a bidding war, said a familiar voice behind him. Henry turned to find Celia, and for a moment, he simply stared. She wore a deep blue dress that complemented her eyes, her usual practical ponytail replaced by an elegant updo. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked completely herself, radiating a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with trying to impress anyone. You clean up nice, he said with a smile. Occasionally, I remember I'm not just your business manager, she replied, accepting a champagne flute from a passing server, though I did already field 3 inquiries about commission slots while getting a drink at the bar. Henry laughed. Never fully off duty, are we? Do we want to be? Her eyes met his. We've built something extraordinary, Henry. It's okay to enjoy it. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither was quite ready to name. There's Diender, Henry said, nodding toward the entrance where their branding expert was speaking animatedly with one of Austin's tech billionaires. Looks like he's working his magic again. He's good at what he does, Celia agreed. Speaking of which, the auctioneer wants to know if you'll say a few words when your piece comes up. Nothing formal, just. She stopped mid-sentence, her attention caught by something over Henry's shoulder. Her expression hardened. What is it? Henry asked, turning to follow her gaze. Amelia stood near the entrance, wearing an expensive dress that somehow still looked desperate. Her hair and makeup were flawless, but her eyes darted around the room with nervous energy. When she spotted Henry, She immediately began moving toward him, her determined stride reminiscent of someone who had rehearsed this moment. "Want me to run interference?" Celia offered quietly. Henry shook his head. No need. This was bound to happen eventually. Amelia reached them, slightly out of breath. "Henry," she said, "I've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I've been busy," he replied simply. Too busy to return a call or an email or respond to a single message. Her voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby guests. "Yes," Henry said, "too busy for that." Amelia's composure slipped. "You can't just ignore me. We were married 5 years, Henry, and I made a mistake." She grabbed his arm. "I've admitted it. I've apologized. What more do you want from me?" Henry gently but firmly removed her hand. "Nothing, Amelia. I want absolutely nothing from you." "That's not fair," she hissed. "You're punishing me, making me watch your success from the sidelines, while everyone who used to respect me now laughs behind my back." "Your current situation has nothing to do with me," Henry said. "I didn't force you to leave. I didn't force you to post misleading things about me online. I didn't force you to make the choices you made. But you're enjoying it, aren't you? My humiliation, my regret." Henry regarded her with something approaching pity. "I don't think about you at all, Amelia." The blunt honesty of the statement hit her like a physical blow. She staggered slightly, then drew herself up, anger replacing hurt. "You've become cold," she accused. "Heartless. The Henry I first knew would never. The Henry you knew doesn't exist anymore." Celia interrupted, stepping forward. "You left the man. I built the legend." Amelia's eyes widened as she truly noticed Celia for the first time. "You," she breathed. "It was you all along, wasn't it? Behind everything, turning him against me." Celia smiled, the expression both kind and resolute. "Henry doesn't need anyone to form his opinions for him. He just needed someone who saw his worth from the beginning." Before Amelia could respond, the auctioneer's voice came over the speaker system. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our live auction will begin in 5 minutes, starting with our centerpiece item, an exclusive Phoenix grain creation by Henry Callahan." "That's our cue," Henry said to Celia, offering his arm. "Shall we?" She took it without hesitation, and they turned away from Amelia, moving toward the auction area together. "Henry," Amelia called after them, her voice breaking. "Please." He didn't look back. Later that evening, as the auctioneer announced the final bid on his table, $250,000 for the charity, Henry stood on stage with a simple smile and said only, "Craftsmanship endures. Status fades. Thank you for supporting a cause that recognizes true value." The applause was thunderous. Amelia was nowhere to be seen. Stars punctuated the night sky above Henry's cabin retreat, 20 miles outside Austin proper. The property, 5 acres of wooded land with a creek running through it, had been his first major purchase after Phoenix Grain's expansion. The cabin itself he had designed and partially built himself, a testament to both his craft and his vision. Henry stood on the wide back porch, Sundance lying contentedly at his feet. The dog occasionally thumped his tail against the wooden planks, a rhythm that matched the peaceful cadence of the evening. "Coffee's ready," Celia said, emerging from the cabin with 2 steaming mugs. She handed one to Henry before settling into the Adirondack chair beside his. Chairs he built specifically for this porch, this view. "Thanks," he said, inhaling the rich aroma. Perfect timing. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fireflies emerge from the tree line. In the 2 years since Phoenix Grain's launch, quiet moments like this had become increasingly precious. The business demanded much of them. Henry as the creative force, Celia as the operational backbone. But here, away from the workshops and offices, away from the social media accounts and interview requests, they could simply exist in the world they'd built together. "I got a call from that architecture firm in Copenhagen," Celia said eventually. "They're still interested in the limited collection we discussed." International shipping is complicated, Henry mused. But I like their philosophy. Could be worth exploring. That's what I told them. She took a sip of her coffee. Also, Lacey called. Austin Monthly wants to do a follow-up piece on the 1-year anniversary of her profile. Apparently, it was their most read article of the quarter. Henry nodded. Could be good timing with the new studio opening. That's what I thought. Celia glanced at him. You know, most CEOs don't just say sounds good to every suggestion their manager makes. Most managers don't have your instincts, Henry replied. And I'm not most CEOs. She laughed softly. No, you certainly aren't. Another comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the chorus of night creatures and the occasional contented sigh from Sundance. Did you ever think we'd end up here? Henry asked suddenly. When all this started, Celia considered the question. Not exactly here, she admitted, but somewhere meaningful. You always had it in you, Henry, the talent, the vision. All you needed was the belief. In you, he added quietly. I needed you. Their eyes met in the soft glow from the porch light. Something shifted between them, a crossing of a threshold they'd been approaching for months. Did you mean what you said to Amelia? Henry asked. About building the legend. Every word, Celia said simply. But I didn't build you, Henry. I just helped create the space where you could build yourself. He reached across the gap between their chairs, taking her hand in his. It felt right. The calluses of his craftsman's fingers against the practical strength of hers. I got a text from Grady today, Henry said. Hayes Granger's gym chain is filing for bankruptcy. Turns out his business model was built on appearances rather than substance. And Amelia, Henry shrugged, moved to Houston. Last I heard, started over. Does that satisfy you? Celia asked, studying his face, knowing she's struggling while you succeed. Henry considered the question seriously. No, he said finally. There's no satisfaction in her downfall. Just peace in my journey. She thought I wasn't in her league. He looked out at the property he owned, thought of the business he'd built, the life he was creating. Turns out I own the whole damn game. Celia squeezed his hand, understanding the sentiment behind the words. Not arrogance, but self-recognition. Not revenge, but self-respect. Sundance lifted his head suddenly, ears perking toward the woods. A moment later, a deer emerged from the tree line, pausing in the clearing as if observing them as much as they observed it. Beautiful, Celia whispered. Yes, Henry agreed, his eyes not on the deer, but on her profile in the soft light. Beautiful. The moment stretched into possibility, into future, into a life being built by choice rather than reaction. And as something earned, not borrowed or imitated, into victory not over others, but over doubt itself.